A landmark court ruling just reshaped the legal ground beneath your feet, and most people with a carry permit still don't understand what it actually means. Starting right now, what you don't know about this decision could put you at serious legal risk. Last month, a 72-year-old named Thomas from Charlotte, North Carolina made a costly mistake. He crossed into a neighboring state with his legally issued carry permit, fully believing he was protected. He wasn't. What followed was a traffic stop, a weapon seizure, and a legal bill that climbed past $9,400 before it was over. Thomas did everything right in his home state. He completed his training, passed his background check, and followed every rule. But he didn't understand how this new legal landscape actually works, and that's exactly what we're going to fix today. Stop right now before we go any further. Are you subscribed to this channel? Here's what separates gun owners who stay protected from those who get blindsided by legal changes. Access to timely information. You found this video, and that's good. But if you're not subscribed, you'll miss the next one when laws shift again. Fix that right now. Hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update that could keep you out of serious legal trouble. So let's get into exactly what happened with this ruling and why it matters so much. The Supreme Court took a hard look at how certain states were handling concealed carry permits. Specifically, they examined systems where a government official could deny your permit application even when you met every single requirement. You passed the background check, completed the training, paid the fees, and still got told no. The reason? A bureaucrat decided your personal reason for wanting to carry wasn't compelling enough. The court said that type of system violates the Second Amendment, plain and simple. Think about what that actually means for a moment. Under those old systems, your constitutional right to carry for self-defense wasn't really a right at all. It was a privilege that a government official could hand out or withhold based on their personal judgment. The Supreme Court drew a clear line in the sand. If you meet the objective requirements your state sets, they have to issue you the permit. They don't get to play favorites anymore. This legal standard is called the shift from a discretionary system to a mandatory one. In plain English, it means the permit process has to be objective, not subjective. Your state can still set requirements. They can still require training. They can still run background checks. What they can't do is add a vague extra layer where someone decides whether your reason is good enough. Now let me tell you about Patricia. She's 69 years old and lives in Indianapolis, Indiana. She's a retired school librarian who lives alone in a house she's owned for over 30 years. Patricia applied for her carry permit 2 years before this ruling came down, in a state with a much more restrictive process at the time. She was denied. The reason listed on her denial form was that her stated concerns didn't rise to the level of documented need. Patricia wasn't angry at first. She was confused. She had done everything right. After the ruling changed the standard, Patricia reapplied. Same background, same training certificate, same fees. This time, the outcome was completely different. Her permit was approved within 6 weeks. She now carries legally and confidently when she walks to her car after evening community events. Patricia's story isn't unusual. Thousands of people who were wrongly denied under the old system now have a legal path forward. But here's the part that surprised Patricia when she learned it. Her new permit, valid in Indiana, doesn't automatically travel with her. When her daughter asked her to visit for a holiday in a state with stricter carry laws, Patricia almost made a serious mistake. She assumed her permit covered her. It didn't. That misunderstanding is exactly what we're going to unpack so you don't find yourself in the same situation. Quick pause right here. What state are you watching from? Drop your state name in the comments section right now. Gun laws differ dramatically from state to state, and I genuinely need to know where my viewers are located. Your comment also helps push this video to more gun owners who need this information. Take 5 seconds and post your state below before we keep going. Let me also tell you about William. He's 74 years old and lives in Louisville, Kentucky. William spent 22 years as a machinist before retiring. He's owned firearms his entire adult life and considers himself a responsible, law-abiding gun owner. William heard about the Supreme Court ruling and felt a wave of relief. He interpreted the news the way a lot of people did. He thought it meant gun owners now had broader freedom across the board. He was half right, and that half-wrong assumption nearly cost him everything. William planned a road trip from Louisville through several states to visit an old friend in a coastal city. He mapped his route, packed his vehicle, and brought his Kentucky carry permit along, assuming it was his legal protection protection the whole way. What he didn't do was check the specific reciprocity rules for each state he'd be passing through. He didn't know that one of the states on his route doesn't recognize out-of-state permits at all. He didn't know that carrying concealed in that state without their specific permit is a felony offense. William was pulled over for a routine equipment violation about 2 hours into that particular state. The officer asked if there were any weapons in the vehicle. William answered honestly. What followed was a 4-hour ordeal at the side of the highway, a weapon that was temporarily confiscated, and a court date that took 7 months and over $11,300 in legal fees to resolve. He wasn't convicted, but the process alone was devastating. His retirement savings took a serious hit. His confidence in his own knowledge of the law was completely shattered. The ruling that William thought protected him didn't apply to his situation at all. The Supreme Court decision was specifically about how states issue permits to their own residents. It said nothing about requiring one state to honor another state's permit. Reciprocity is still entirely a state-by-state arrangement, and some states are still as restrictive as ever when it comes to recognizing permits issued elsewhere. Here's what frustrates me about this whole situation. Law-abiding gun owners like William follow every rule. They invest time and money into training. They jump through every legal hoop their state requires. And then they get blindsided by a legal technicality in another state because nobody explained the full picture clearly. The media covered this Supreme Court decision with big headlines, but left out the fine print that actually affects your daily life. That's exactly why this kind of detailed breakdown matters. The anger I feel watching good people get caught in legal situations they never intended to create is real. These aren't criminals. These are responsible citizens who believe their good faith effort to follow the law would protect them. It doesn't always work that way, and that's a serious problem with how this information reaches everyday gun owners. Now let me share something more encouraging. Let me tell you about Barbara. She's 71 years old and lives in Denver, Colorado. Barbara had been hesitant to apply for a carry permit for years because a friend told her the process in her county was brutally slow and nearly impossible to get through. After the Supreme Court ruling changed the legal standards, she decided to try. She called her local sheriff's office, asked directly about the current process, and got clear answers. She completed an approved training course, submitted her application, and received her permit in just under 2 months. Barbara now carries legally when she hikes in areas outside the city. She did one additional thing that made all the difference. Before planning any trip that crosses state lines, she checks a current reciprocity map using a free resource maintained by a firearms legal organization. She knows exactly which states honor her Colorado permit and which ones don't. She's never been caught off guard. Barbara's approach is the right model, and we'll talk about exactly how to do what she did in the action steps coming up. If this video is helping you understand what this ruling actually means, take 2 seconds right now and hit the like button. I know it seems small, but the algorithm uses that signal to push this content in front of more gun owners who need to understand these legal changes. More views means more people get accurate information instead of the distorted coverage in mainstream media. Hit like right now. It takes less than 2 seconds, and it genuinely helps. Now let's talk about something the ruling opened up that most people completely missed. The legal test the Supreme Court established doesn't just apply to carry permits. Courts across the country are now using this same standard to evaluate all kinds of other gun laws. Laws restricting magazine capacity, laws banning certain types of semi-automatic rifles, age-based restrictions, waiting periods, and more are all being challenged in federal courts using the exact framework this ruling created. The new standard the court set requires courts to look at whether a gun law is rooted in the historical tradition of firearm regulation in this country. If there's no clear historical analog for a restriction, states have a much harder time defending it in court. That's a major shift from how gun cases were analyzed before. Previously, courts would sometimes weigh the government's interest in public safety against your Second Amendment rights. The Supreme Court said that's the wrong approach. Constitutional rights don't get balanced away because a government finds it convenient. Some of these follow-on challenges are winning, others are losing. Courts are still working out exactly how far this new standard reaches. The honest answer is that legal clarity on many of these questions is still years away. What's certain is that the legal landscape is moving quickly, and staying current matters more now than it ever has before. Let me tell you about one more person before we get into the action steps. His name is George. He's 68 years old and lives in Memphis, Tennessee. George is someone who applied for and received his carry permit years ago without any problems. He's been carrying responsibly ever since. When he heard about the Supreme Court ruling, he assumed it didn't really affect him since he already had his permit. He kept doing what he'd always done without updating his knowledge. What George didn't realize was that his state had quietly added a list of restricted locations where permit holders can no longer legally carry. Parks where he used to walk his dog, restaurants he frequented regularly, even some public transportation routes he took occasionally. These new sensitive place designations were a direct response by his state to the Supreme Court ruling. The state couldn't make the permit harder to get anymore, so they expanded the list of places where it couldn't be used. George wasn't carrying anywhere malicious. He genuinely didn't know the rules had changed. He was stopped by a security officer at a public event and asked to leave because his firearm was prohibited at that location under the new state guidelines. It was embarrassing and unnecessary. The lesson is simple. Even if you've had your permit for years, the rules attached to that permit keep changing. You have to stay current or you risk becoming unintentionally non-compliant. Think of someone right now who needs to hear what we're covering in this video. A family member, a neighbor, someone from your range or gun club, someone who carries and probably thinks the Supreme Court ruling means everything is fine now without understanding the details. Text them this video link right now before you forget. Don't wait until after you finish watching. Do it now while it's top of mind. You might keep them out of a situation like Williams. Here's exactly what you need to do after watching this video. I'm giving you 5 steps. Each one is specific and straightforward. You don't have to complete all of them today, but start with step 1 by the end of this week. Write these down if you can. Ready? Let's go. Step 1. Find out your state's current carry permit status right now. Search your state's name plus the words concealed carry permit requirements and look for your state attorney general's website or your state police website. These are official sources. You want to confirm whether your state now operates on a shall issue basis, meaning they must issue your permit if you meet the requirements. If you were previously denied under an older, more restrictive system, you may have grounds to reapply under the new standard. Call your local sheriff's office or county permit office and ask directly whether the criteria have changed since 2022. Step 2. Review the sensitive places list in your home state. This is the list of locations where your permit does not allow you to carry, even if your permit is otherwise valid. This list has changed in many states since the Supreme Court ruling. Search your state name plus Concealed Carry Restricted Locations 2025. Print the current list or screenshot it and keep it somewhere you'll actually reference. Common additions include certain parks, transit systems, entertainment venues, and locations that serve alcohol. Not knowing this list is not a legal defense. Step 3. Before any travel that crosses state lines, verify reciprocity for every state on your route. Don't just check your destination, check every state you drive through. Several credible organizations publish and maintain up-to-date reciprocity maps for free. Search Concealed Carry Reciprocity Map and use a source from a recognized firearms legal organization or your state's official government page. Never assume reciprocity exists just because a state is nearby or considered gun-friendly. Assumptions in this area can result in felony charges. Step 4. Understand how to transport your firearm legally in states where your permit is not recognized. Federal law provides some baseline protections for transporting firearms through states where you don't have a valid permit, but those protections come with very specific requirements. The firearm must be unloaded, it must be stored in a locked hard-sided container, and that container must be in a part of the vehicle not easily accessible, like the trunk. This is not the same as carrying. This is transportation only. If you stop overnight in a non-reciprocal state, you need to understand additional rules about temporary storage. Consulting a firearms attorney before a multi-state trip is money well spent if significant travel is involved. Step 5. Consider joining a firearms legal defense organization. These organizations provide legal coverage if you ever face a firearms-related legal issue, even one that arises from a misunderstanding of a rapidly changing law. Annual memberships are often less than $200. Compare that to Williams' $11,000 legal bill. The protection these organizations provide includes coverage for legal defense, access to attorneys who specialize in firearms law, and sometimes educational resources to keep you current. Search Firearms Legal Defense Organization and review 2 or 3 options before choosing one that fits your situation. Let's review what we covered today. The Supreme Court issued a ruling that fundamentally changed how states can control who receives a concealed carry permit. States can no longer use subjective systems that let officials reject applications based on their personal judgment about your reasons. If you meet the objective requirements, you must receive the permit. That's a genuine win for Second Amendment rights. But the ruling didn't eliminate all permit requirements. It didn't create national reciprocity. It didn't make your permit valid in every state you visit. The legal consequences of misunderstanding this distinction are serious, and they're falling on good, law-abiding people who never meant to break any law. Hundreds of court cases are still working through the legal system, trying to define the full reach of this ruling, which means the landscape will keep shifting. What's legally accurate today may change before the end of the year. If this video gave you a clearer picture, here's what I want you to do. Subscribe to this channel so you get notified every time I publish an update on gun law changes. Share this video with other gun owners in your circle who need to understand the real details behind this ruling. Drop a comment below with your state and any specific questions you have. I read the comments and I use them to decide what topics to cover next. Your engagement also helps push this content to more gun owners who need accurate information. Important disclaimer. This video is for educational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice of any kind. Gun laws vary significantly from state to state, and they change frequently. Nothing in this video should be used as the sole basis for any decision about how you carry, transport, or store your firearm. Always consult with a licensed attorney who specializes in firearms law in your specific state before making those decisions. Every person's situation is different, and professional legal guidance is always the appropriate step when your rights and your freedom are on the line.